Hi, welcome to InDesign Secrets Video Podcast Episode 10, the top 10 ways to add a color swatch. I'm David Blattner, and I'm here along with my co-host, Anne-Marie Concepcion.
Thank you, David. Now, most people would add a color to an InDesign document by going to the Swatches panel and then going to the Swatches panel menu and choosing New Color Swatch.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, an obvious and perfectly reasonable way to add a color.
Yeah, or you could click on that New Color Swatch button at the bottom of the Swatches panel, which is kind of crazy because, notice here that it's grayed out. So normally, sometimes when you'll be trying to open a new document and add a new swatch, and it'll be grayed out. And I always wonder, why do they gray that out? And the reason is because you don't have anything that it can base it on selected here in the Swatches panel. You would have to choose a color, and then it becomes possible. Now you can click New Swatch, and it just adds a new swatch based on the one that you have selected, which is totally insane. I just have to say, totally insane. I mean, the grayed out thing was bad enough, but this is totally insane because why doesn't it open the dialog box? Let me undo that. Command Z or Control Z on Windows to undo that. So instead, always Option or Alt click on New Swatch. First select something you want to base it on, then Option or Alt click, and then it forces the New Color Swatch dialog box to open. And now you can adjust it.
Or just choose New Color Swatch from the panel menu.
Well, you could, I know. Just like you did it, but I just don't like menus. I have a thing about menus. I want to use keyboard shortcuts and buttons whenever possible. Just keep efficient.
Okay, that's fine.
Now, once this is here,
yes,
you want to talk about that add button? You really need to talk about that add button.
Yeah. New users are often wonder what's the difference between OK and add, which it is kind of, ambiguous. If I click, let's say that I'm going to make a new color, I'm going to reduce cyan, and there's a nice purple color. If I clicked OK, it would add this magenta-ish color to the Swatches panel and also close the dialog box. But very often when you go to the New Color Swatch dialog box, you want to add more than one color. So instead, I could just click Add, which adds it to the panel, and then I can choose something else. Make another color here, add that one. I could change it to a spot color and choose one of the spot color libraries and add a whole bunch of spot colors and so on. So that's what add is for. And you see add in lots of dialog boxes in InDesign.
Yes, it will add, but not close the dialog box, which is great.
It's interesting here, David, that you do not have name with color value. Oh, wait, maybe it's because it was on spot.
Exactly, yeah.
No,
yeah.
You don't have it turned on. Why is that?
I normally do. I normally leave that on, but either way, sometimes I just like naming things pretty colors, like emerald green or joyous blue or something like that. It's up to you.
Okay.
You can work either way.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just going to go ahead and say OK, which will add this color.
Yep, sounds great. Oh, you got two of them there now. One with a little 2 after it.
Oh, yeah.
Another little annoyance in InDesign. It won't necessarily notice that you've got 2. Very frustrating. But there you go. So that all is basically one way that you can add a color swatch to InDesign, to an InDesign document. You use.
So what's this little guy down here?
Well, the color panel is another way that you can add color swatches. Most people think of the color panel as a way of making unnamed colors that have no color swatch assigned to them. But I think of the color panel as the first step in making a color swatch. And so I can come in here and just choose a color. Normally I wouldn't just pick something randomly just by the way it looks on screen. I would type in some CMYK values here. But
that's funny. The only reason that I would ever use the color panel would be to select some random color by how it looks.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, there you go.
Because it's got this very useful color ramp on the bottom, just like Photoshop.
It does. But there's other color ramps which we'll see in just a minute. But sometimes I'll come in here and I'll look in a swatch book and I'll say, I want 80 cyan and let's say 50 yellow and get this kind of green color. And I have now made an unnamed color. But I want to add it to the Swatches panel. I don't like unnamed colors in my InDesign documents.
Boo hiss, no.
Yeah,
like
it's just going to cause trouble. So instead I'm going to add this color to the Swatches panel, and there's various ways that you can do that. And one of the easiest ways is simply by dragging this little icon, the little preview color icon here. Just grab it and drag it up into the Swatches panel. And boom, there you go. I now have my CMYK color swatch in the Swatches panel. So that's one way you could do that.
Right. And then you see what happens to the color panel. Is that as soon as you have an actual swatch selected, it shows you a color ramp. And my favorite trick for getting back to CMYK is to shift double click on that ramp.
Perfect.
Which automatically cycles it to the CMYK. And that's just a keyboard shortcut for jumping back to this color ramp right here. instead of RGB or LAB.
I like it. I like it. Now you're pointing out there in that that menu. Why don't we open that menu again?
Go ahead.
The other way that you can add something from the color panel to the swatches panel, you simply choose Add to Swatches. That's the long way of grabbing this and dragging it up into the swatches panel. But either way, either way works to add that color from the color panel.
What's that? Find colors.
Find colors. Ooh, what is find colors? Find colors is a little thing because we have Blattner tools selected here. Blattner tools, of course, is that suite of 12 plugins from dtptools.com, and find colors is part of Blattner tools. That will open a colors dialog box, and that'll take us down a whole other road. But we don't need to go.
Well, for
there
people
right now.
following this, I think maybe when those things appear, you should point out that those are coming from Blattner tools. They're not part of InDesign.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Okay.
So let's do another way to add a color.
All right.
And that is via any of the styles dialog boxes.
Oh, this is a tricky one. This is really obscure. Okay.
Okay, so let's say I'm going to go ahead and double click in this text just to highlight the paragraph style that's currently using, and that is actually these are a little tricky, but let's go ahead and do numbered text.
Sure. And
double click on that, and I want to look at the character color.
Yep.
Which is orange.
Yeah.
But that was blue. That's why I said it's a little tricky. So that's only because it's using a nested style, the way that this document was set up.
It is. Well, let's go. That's fine. We'll just go ahead and do it here.
Okay.
It's going to change the orange to something else, but that's fine.
Right. So this is number text up here. So instead of that color, we want to use a different color.
Yeah, but it doesn't show up there in that list. So what do? How could you add a color swatch to this list without having to close the dialog box? That's the trick. Without having to change the color, the dialog box, the trick is to double-click on the icon. These little icons here. This is a totally obscure trick, but it's a clever one. If you have a dialog box open, you don't want to click OK. Just double-click on the icon, and there we go. It says New Color Swatch dialog box, and here we can choose whatever color we're going to choose.
And there again, we have our OK and our Add buttons.
That's right. We can add a bunch of them if we want to, but in this case, we'll just do that one. Click OK, and suddenly, here it is at the bottom of our list. So I can choose it here, click OK, and they will update throughout the document. So let's go back and I'll close
Except
this.
for that one little outlier there.
Oh, that must have some local formatting on it. That's unfortunate.
That's right.
But you can see that the color was added to the swatches panel. So that is number 4 in the methods for adding color swatches.
Add swatch,
the
color panel, and styles. That was number 3. We didn't do the color picker.
Oh, I forgot the color picker. Well,
yeah, color picker.
We're not very good at following our own list here. Color picker. The color picker. Let's talk about the color picker. We better get this out of the way because I hate this so much. How do we get to the color picker? Double-click on the fill or stroke icon at the bottom of the tool panel, and up comes the color picker, which people love because it looks just like Photoshop, or more or less like Photoshop. Right. They're like, ooh, look, it's the color picker. It's so exciting.
Hey, something I recognize.
But there's some deep problems with picking colors from the color picker. And the main thing is, if I simply just choose a color and click OK, I'll get that color. It'll be an unnamed color, but it's an RGB color. And the main trick here, if you're going to use the color picker, is click in one of the CMYK fields first. As soon as you click in one of these fields, see how that button changes to CMYK? InDesign internally starts thinking of all these colors as CMYK colors. So that's the little trick. That's the main reason I don't like the color picker, is it doesn't... you have to remember to click in here.
But go ahead and choose Add CMYK Swatch, just to be complete about things.
Okay. Click. It's done. I added the CMYK swatch. Let's move that out of the way. You can see it down here. The second reason I don't like this is because it still doesn't really give you a true CMYK color picker here. It's always an RGB color space view. So even if you're making CMYK colors. So there we go. That's how you add a color swatch with the color picker. All right. Now have we done
aren't all the color previews RGB? How could they be anything else?
Well,
I mean, in the ramp in the color panel,
it
is RGB.
It's true, but it doesn't limit you to a. This is a whole other discussion. We'll have to write a blog post about this because this is it should limit you to CMYK colors when you're in there. But that's another discussion.
I suppose.
Let's go on to talk about some other ways that you can
so
add
now that's
swatches.
4.
That's now
Number
we're at 4.
5.
We better move along quickly here. To add a color swatch, you can add an image. You can place an image. File, place, and I'll just grab an image
Right.
here. This color here is an EPS file, but this would work just as well with a PDF file or an AI file or whatever.
Oh my goodness, you have an EPS file
This
on your
is-
hard drive?
You know, this file actually originally, this moon image was originally from 1988. I've had this from Illustrator 1.1, I think.
That's
Believe it or
funny.
not, it's kind of scary. So anyway, I click on that, I place it, and we can see at the bottom of the swatches panel, because there were spot colors in there, it took those spot colors and it added them to the swatches panel automatically.
Now, I wish that it would add custom CMYK colors that you name
Yeah,
in
that would be
Illustrator.
cool. Yeah.
You know, even if you turn on global or anything like that, it makes no difference. They just come in, as just regular colors, their own mix. So you have to name it as a spot color, and then it'll come in on its own. Then you could always reconvert it back to CMYK if you wanted to.
Kind of.
All right.
That's tricky. But that's tricky. But yeah, that is one. What's another way
Yes.
we can get a color in?
Well, I think that we've added some colors. I mean, if you choose Add Unnamed from the Swatches panel, from the Swatches panel menu, that will go through the entire document. And if you've been adding colors with the color panel or with the color picker, which doesn't automatically add them to the Swatches panel, then that will go ahead and add them. So
That's
if you choose
right.
Add Unnamed Colors, you might end up with a few more colors. Now, we were very careful during our demo to always choose Add to Swatches afterwards.
Yep. I think you
Yeah.
clicked on that color accidentally there, but let's click on that back. But in general, yes, that is a great way to. I try and do that whenever someone sends me a document, and I suspect that there might be unnamed colors. I just jump right to the swatches panel and add all unnamed swatches, just to make sure everything turns into a swatch and I can track it that way.
That's right.
That's a very helpful thing.
And one of my favorite secret sort of ways of adding a color to the swatches panel, or at least of creating a new color that you can choose add to swatches panel, is by using the eyedropper tool.
Oh yeah, yep.
Right. So when you place any image that has color, any raster image that is, you can choose the eyedropper tool or press I, which is the keyboard shortcut, hold it over a placed image, and then hold down the Alt key on a PC or the Option key on a Mac and click. And now that color doesn't get added to swatches, but look at the current fill color here and here. So it picked up. So like if you've placed an image and you want to use colors from that image for subheads or other elements in your design, that's a wonderful way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it picks that up, and then once it's in the color panel, now you can get it into the swatches just by dragging it
Wait.
up.
I would convert it to our CMYK first. It's
Oh,
RGB
I
at
better
this point.
undo. Command Z, undo. Okay, now back. Thank you.
Right.
Please do.
So we can just come over here and change it to CMYK
There you go.
and then drag it up.
Excellent. Yeah, it came in as RGB because the image, that background image, is an RGB image, that kind of mottled blue color. So that is a great way, and you can pick up a bunch of these. Now I can bring this back over to here and pick up a darker color. Again, Option or Alt click on a darker color and brings it in here. Switch to CMYK and then drag it up here. So once again, that's adding color swatches from raster images. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of that. And we're going to, here's another way. Number 8, I think. 8 or 9, I don't know, I've lost track, of adding swatches.
Number 17.
Exactly, adding swatches to your swatches panel. You could choose it from an ASE file. What's an ASE file? Anne-Marie, how could I get an ASE file?
Well, an ASE file is a subset of colors from either Photoshop, Illustrator, or InDesign. So you create the colors, and let's say that I want this color, and then I'm holding down the Command or Control key and these colors, and then I can say I want to save these as an Adobe Swatch Exchange file. So I come to the Swatches panel menu, and I choose Save Swatches. So it's going to save my selected swatches.
Yes, exactly.
And then I can share this among different files that I'm using in programs in the Creative Suite.
Yep.
And it always ends with ASE, so if I saved it on the desktop or I just called it that, I'll just call it Menu Colors.
Great. And the thing is that it's not always exactly the same. Like in Photoshop, it's called Save Swatches for Exchange. So if you see that word exchange, you know that you've got the right thing. And in fact, we have some colors that we saved out of Photoshop, and we're going to bring them into this InDesign document by choosing from the Swatches panel menu, Load Swatches. So the Load Swatches will let you bring in an ASE file. Here's one that we brought in that came out of Photoshop. Click Open, and all of those color swatches got added here. Green, cyan, blue, violet, and so on. You can see that they're all RGB colors, and they are all added in here as RGB colors. So that's it. Again, it depends on what the swatch, how the swatch was defined.
What about
in the
these
program.
funky ones? What are these?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Those are LAB colors.
LAB colors. Just hover over it, and you'll see the LAB representation.
For the luminance channel and then A and B channels.
That's right, exactly. Those were defined again in Photoshop as LAB colors.
That's a great answer for Jeopardy.
Yes, it is.
What does LAB stand for?
Yes.
Luminance A and B.
Luminance AB. There you go. Okay, other ways we talked about eyedropper. Adding the RTF file or adding the Word file. That was
right.
This is one that always bugs me because it adds color swatches when I don't want it to add color swatches. I'm moving along here and I say, oh, let's go ahead and file, place. I'll choose this Word document, my very exciting Word file. Click open, and I'll just drag out a little text frame here, and you'll see that the Word file comes in, and there was color in there. Because there was color in the Word document, if I scroll down to the bottom of the Swatches panel, you'll see, there it is, sea green. I believe that's the color that was added. Yes, the sea green RGB color. Very annoying.
RTF and Microsoft Office files only support RGB colors, so you'll often see this come in added as that beautiful RGB blue because of people using having turned on the option in Word to automatically create hyperlinks.
Yep.
So when you place the Word file, the hyperlinks are colored in RGB blue, and they get added, and people wonder how'd that happen in the Swatches panel. That's how.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the final way that we should talk about adding swatches to a document is with copy and paste. Now
wait. Well, we missed one big one.
Uh-oh.
The one that I use more often, actually, is load. Was it load? Yeah.
Oh, I guess
talked about load, right?
We talked about load, but we didn't talk about loading from an InDesign file. You're right.
That's right.
Good point.
Because you don't need to create the ASC file in order to get colors from one InDesign file to the other InDesign file.
Good point.
You can just choose load swatches and then point it at another InDesign document.
Yep.
The problem there is that it's going to pull in all of the colors.
That's right. Right.
So that's why you might want to go to the trouble of creating an ASC file from that document first and then loading just the ASC file. Yeah. But I just want to point that out because I think it's a very common way for people to move colors from one InDesign file to the next to keep, the same issues consistent, things like that.
But again, because of the problem you said, because it brings in all the swatches, I just find myself not doing that very often. Instead, if I want certain swatches, what I'll do is I'll come out here to the pasteboard and I'll say I want this one, and I'm going to option drag this over here, and I want that one, option drag. Option drag or alt drag simply makes a duplicate of it. It's just a fast way to make a bunch of duplicates. And I'll select the colors that I want, select them with a selection tool, and cut them to the clipboard. So they're sitting on the clipboard now. I cannot copy and paste the swatches, but I can copy and paste the objects themselves. Now, when I open a new document with Command-Option-N or Control-Alt-N and paste, you'll see that the swatches panel did not have those colors, and as soon as I paste, those colors are added. Yay! So that's typically how I add colors. Now, of course, it's not just copy and paste. You could put those objects in a library. You could make a snippet out of them and just bring the snippet in instead. Any of those ways. If an object has a color swatch applied to it, when you add that object to a new InDesign document, the swatch comes with it.
That's right. I think that we covered them all now.
Wow. Unbelievable. That's a lot of stuff.
All right, so that is it for Videocast episode number 10. And until we meet again, this is Anne-Marie Concepcion and
David Blattner for InDesignSecrets.